The educational materials presented here were developed by students and faculty of the Department of Food Science and Human Nutrition at Iowa State University. Funding for this project was provided by grants from the American Cancer Society Midwest and the Lance Armstrong Foundation. The materials are intended for educational use and are not meant to provide medical advice. We welcome your feedback about these materials. Please use the evaluation survey link on the homepage to provide your comments and suggestions.
The topic this presentation will discuss is new trends in cancer prevention. In particular, it will focus on the effects of soy and acai berry on cancer risk. To get started, think about this question. Do you think consuming soy products will increase or decrease an individual's risk of cancer? Soy is considered to be both a bean and a legume, and can be eaten in many different forms. Whole soybeans can be toasted or cooked like any other bean. One common preparation technique used in Asian countries is to boil them in salt water. This is referred to as edamame. Soy can also be ground into flour and substituted in recipes for all-purpose flour. Many processed products also contain soy, such as soy milk, cheeses, yogurts, and soybean oil. Other soy products include tofu, which is made from soy milk, miso, which is a paste made from soybeans, and tempeh, which is made from whole soybeans. The nutritional content of soy products varies greatly depending on many factors. For example, much of the soy in U.S. products is processed. Thus, its nutritional composition changes from that of unprocessed soybeans. Overall, soy is a good source of protein, with about 40% of its total calories coming from protein. It is also a great substitute for meat and vegetarian diets because it contains all the essential amino acids that the body needs yet cannot produce, which defines soy as a complete protein. Soy products are also typically high in fiber, B vitamins, calcium, iron, and the good fats, omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. It is also low in saturated fat. It is important to note, however, that nutritional composition of soy depends on what other ingredients are included in the final food product. There are a couple of key reasons that soy is being researched so heavily in recent years. The first is due to the significantly lower incidence of cancer in Asian countries and their high consumption of soy products. Researchers believe there may be a link between these two facts. When Asians migrate to the U.S., their risk of cancer increases over several generations to approach that of U.S. white citizens. This demonstrates that genetics is not the main factor in the lower occurrences of cancer in Asian countries. The second reason is that soy contains components called isoflavones, which have been observed to either mimic or counter the effects of estrogen under certain conditions. This has actually caused much concern about the safety of soy products for women with a high risk for breast cancer or women who have breast cancer. However, most of these concerns have stemmed from data collected during rodent and cell culture experiments. Other studies in humans have shown that isoflavones may have a protective effect on cancer of the breast. When deciding what information is creditable and true, it is important to understand which websites you can trust. Many websites contain information stating the benefits of soy in reference to cancer, and many others you may find will say the opposite. It is common to start with a Google search when researching a topic of interest. Often, Wikipedia is one of the top sites, and both Google and Wikipedia are fine to use when looking up general information such as what soy is. Many times it can even be helpful in determining what subtopics you may need to research further. But you should be cautious with many sites found on Google and Wikipedia because anyone can post information to the internet and claim it as true. How do you know if it is true? Look for .org, .edu, and .gov website sources because those tend to be more credible, especially when looking for more specific information such as nutritional benefits and side effects. Finally, virtually all reliable websites have a link to the original source of their information, usually in the form of a journal article. Click the link, read the abstract, and see for yourself if you believe and understand the site's claims. It is important to get to the original source of any information you find on the internet, and if you cannot locate or identify the author, it is best to consider that site unreliable. Following the previous slide's guide, many studies concerning soy and cancer were identified with a specific focus on breast cancer. In one study published in 2009, Asian American women who had previously been diagnosed with breast cancer were interviewed and questioned on race, residential history, menstrual and reproductive history, medical and family history, anthropometrics, and cultural and religious practices. Researchers also collected information about each participant's dietary intake of soy during childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. To gather the most accurate information about the participants' childhood intake of soy, mothers of participants were also questioned. In many cases, mothers could not be reached, refused participation, or had already passed away. In these cases, only the participants' data was used. This chart shows the levels of intake, low, medium, and high, for each stage of life, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. The second column describes the ratio of participants who had breast cancer, cases, to the controls, or women who did not have breast cancer. The relative risk, or RR, for the lowest intake at each stage of life is set at 1.0 and used as the reference value. Intakes of medium or high amounts of soy are then compared to 1.0. A decrease from 1.0 represents a decreased risk, so the smaller the decimal in the third column, the lower the risk. As the chart shows, increasing amounts of soy at all stages of life resulted in a decreased risk, but the most significant decrease is seen in medium to high intakes during childhood. This suggests that the most important time to increase intake of soy in order to reduce risk of breast cancer is during childhood years. In an article published by Dr. Helfrich, an associate professor of nutrition at the University of Illinois and who researches soy and cancer, expressed his concern about some negative impacts of soy isoflavones on cancer risk. His research suggested that women who have estrogen-sensitive breast cancer or breast cancer in which estrogen encourages growth may experience increased growth of their tumors. This is thought to be due to the fact that the isoflavone genistein mimics the effects of estrogen, and high levels of estrogen are associated with increased cancer proliferation. Dr. Helfrich states, over 90% of soy consumption is likely to be a health benefit to Americans, but I am concerned about the woman with an estrogen-dependent cancer. She needs to be very careful about the amount of soy isoflavones she consumes. An important note is that this study was only performed in animals and not in humans, so it can only raise awareness of the issue, not provide proof of negative effects of soy on cancer risk. Another study done in 2004 found similar results. Researchers added genistein and daidzein to estrogen-sensitive breast cancer cells in cell culture and found that the products of the breakdown of isoflavones caused damage to the DNA of the mammary cells and thus initiated tumor growth and progression. As with the previous study, research done in cell cultures and animal models provide a limited amount of information, whereas studies in humans are more credible. Another important note about this study is the difference in isoflavones used. In this case, the isoflavones were in a purified form in which they did not have to be broken down or separated from other components. But in many human studies, the isoflavones are used within a soy product and thus need to be separated from other nutrients before they can be used by the body. Despite these concerns, these studies do provide a great base for increasing research in this area, but show that there is a disconnect between information research can provide from using isolated isoflavones in a cell culture to that of what humans would consume from simply eating soy products. The reason it is so difficult to determine a conclusive result and recommendation concerning soy consumption and risk of breast cancer is that the findings of different studies vary based on the ethnicity and age of participants, as well as the status of cancer in the participants. Other aspects include differences in dosage of soy isoflavones, as well as the form of isoflavones used. As mentioned on the previous slide, purified isoflavones and isoflavones found in soy products will affect results differently. Different soy products also have differing contents of isoflavones due to variances in processing. All of these factors must be taken into account when reading and analyzing journal articles, and they are also factors that can be left out when another site discusses an article they used as a reference. For this reason, it is very important to always read the original research in order to determine if a website accurately explained the significance of a data set or if information was taken out of context. After reviewing this portion of the presentation, what do you think? Would you include or increase soy in your diet? What are your reasons? There really is no right answer to the question of whether soy is good or bad. Unfortunately, more research needs to be done before a conclusive argument is made in support of or against high consumption of soy products. As mentioned earlier, results from cell culture and animal studies will not necessarily provide the same results when investigated in humans. The best recommendation is to consume soy in moderation, like most other foods. Use your best judgment, and when faced with a new argument for or against soy, do some investigating for yourself. Some soy foods do not contain isoflavones, and this information is not found on the food label, so you don't know whether you're actually consuming isoflavones. Soy oil, for example, does not contain isoflavones. Another food that is getting a lot of press recently for its health benefits is the acai berry. Let's examine the same questions as with soy and see what the information shows. The acai berry is native to the Amazon region in South America and is especially abundant in Brazil. Civilians of this region consume high amounts of it and often use it in traditional medicine treatments. The acai berry is similar in size and color to a grape, but much of its mass is made up of the outer skin and a seed inside. Due to its high perishability, outside of the native region, it can only be purchased in freeze-dried powder or pulp forms. It has received much press lately for its many health benefits such as cardiovascular and digestive health, increased energy, anti-aging, and anti-cancer effects. Many of you may have seen Dr. Perricone as a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show declare acai as a new superfood, mainly for the benefits of its high antioxidant content. The chart on the right shows the nutritional facts of 100 grams of freeze-dried acai. Like most berries, acai is full of healthy nutrients such as vitamin A, fiber, iron, calcium, antioxidants such as anthocyanins and proanthocyanidins, and flavonoids. The reason that acai is believed to be exceptionally healthy is due to its high antioxidant content, specifically anthocyanins and proanthocyanidins, which have been shown to have anti-cancer effects. Oxidation is a process that causes free radicals to form within the body. In some cases, free radicals form from everyday activities, such as digestion of food. But other environmental and lifestyle factors such as smoking, pollution, and radiation can increase the amount of free radicals in an individual as well. If free radicals are not removed, they can cause DNA damage and lead to an increased risk of cancer. One report found that the acai pulp had the highest reported free radical scavenging capacity within a controlled environment of any other food previously tested. It also found that the antioxidants in acai pulp can cross cell membranes of human red blood cells and provide protection from oxidative damage. Although these findings do not prove a direct connection with cancer prevention, they certainly warrant a need for further research in the area. In a research study published in the Pharmaceutical Research Journal earlier in 2010, the acai berry was one of 7 berries that were investigated. Different groups of rats were fed varying diets based on these 7 berries, including black raspberries, red raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, noni, wolfberry, and acai. The purpose of the study was to compare the effect of each berry on the presence and size of esophageal tumors in these rats to each other and to a control group. The study found that all 7 berry types successfully reduced the number of esophageal tumors as compared to the control group, but there was no significant difference between the amount of tumor reduction seen in the varying berry groups. The chart on this slide compares each berry type to the control diet. As you can see, the tumor incidences were all reduced by at least 20% and up to 35%. Multiplicity of the tumors was also significantly reduced for every berry type from 2.15 in the control diet. All the berries were found to have similar antioxidant capacities as well. It was determined that anthocyanins and proanthocyanidins in the acai berry were the main components responsible for the chemopreventative activity within the acai berries seen in the study. Since much more research is needed on the subject of acai and cancer prevention, there is no single recommendation. The following are some suggestions concerning the topic. Ignore online scams and claims about weight reduction, increased energy, and colon cleansing ability. The majority of the supplements available on the market are only out there to make money. Remember that acai is a fruit, so like other fruits, it is probably healthy and provides some benefits. The key to incorporating acai into your diet, if you choose to do so, is not to expect miracles. Don't consume it in excess and choose a sugar-free acai pulp or a juice that is lower in sugar to avoid excess calories from added sugar. In dealing with some foods such as soy and acai, in which a solid consensus is yet to be determined, you often have to decide for yourself whether or not it is a good idea to incorporate these foods into your diet. The key is to make an educated decision instead of one based on false advertisements and outrageous claims. When doing research on your own, be sure to use credible websites, read journal articles, and don't be afraid to ask a professional. Understand both sides of the issue by researching not only the good news about a product, but also the bad. A good rule of thumb whenever you're unsure is to eat all foods in moderation. When researching scientifically controversial topics, it is important to recognize any source of error or bias that may be present. In Google searches, be cautious of sites that anyone can create and ones that strongly encourage or discourage any food or supplement consumption. Remember, in many cases, such as soy and acai, more research often needs to be done to determine a final decision. Product websites can be biased because the goal of the site is to introduce consumers to a product and persuade them to purchase it. The focus will always be on the benefits, and little information will be offered as to the side effects. News stories are typically credible sources of information, but be sure to read the whole article, not just the headline, and be aware of anything that sounds too good to be true. Do research of your own about the subject matter to uncover all the facts. Although journal articles are the most credible resources to use when researching a difficult subject, they are not free of errors. As mentioned earlier, research performed in cell cultures and animals do not provide the same results as in humans. Cell cultures can only simulate the environment. They cannot perfectly replicate natural conditions. Animals have similar genetic makeups, but they are not the same as humans. One factor to consider when reading an article using animals is that particular animal's susceptibility to tumors. If an animal is already predisposed to tumors, how can one discern whether a tumor was caused by its genes or another factor? In human studies, there are often many factors that contribute to results. One may be genetic differences between nationalities or lifestyle factors that differ from person to person or among different cultures. Keep all of these ideas in mind when reading a journal article and use your own educated